sure that you're not putting the pressure on the discs, that you're really keeping it, a forward bend, more into the hips. There is, of course, a bit of a stretching in the back, but it's gentle. Very, very gentle. It's done in a lengthening fashion. So, for the spine, rotations are probably also what will tend to be the most challenging. So people with injuries in their back will have a hard time twisting. So when you're twisting, always be gentle not to force the twist too harshly. Twisting very, very harshly will challenge a lot the ligaments around the spine. And so twisting should always be done carefully, even with people with great mobility and without injuries. Just because twisting is probably one of the things that is the most challenging for the structural aspect of the spine.
I don't know if you've talked about the sciatic nerve or not.
I hinted at it.
Because what would cause, sometimes if I haven't been doing like much, well, I've been doing a bit of yoga, but nothing with a heavy flow, but after those type of classes at night, when I'm lying there, I can like feel it. It's like this like annoying dull pain, and it's usually when I've done yoga.
It's because a lot of people will not necessarily have a full herniation, though what they can have sometimes is a bulging disc. Bulging just means that it's slightly sticking out, though it's not sticking out enough to be stuck. When it's herniated, it means that whenever you're going into back bend, it's getting pinched. So it's really getting actually strangled. And that's what really becomes dangerous.
So it's like this pain down the leg kind of?
If the pain is really just along the thigh and does not go in the calf and the foot, it's not an actual sciatic pain. It's either from a muscle or from a gentle stretching of the envelope around the nerve.
It has like a dial pulse.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
as I'm falling asleep. So what would I do? Like, what am I doing wrong?
Leave it alone.
Just
Let it rest. Let it rest is a good thing to do. Also, maybe within the practice. Within the practice, try to see if at any point you may have had a tendency to let your spine soften a bit too much into extension. If you keep your core active in back bends, you will prevent any compression, even with bulging. So what I found within my practice is that even though I didn't gain that much flexibility in my spine, now what I've gained is much better control at feeling where I'm going in my spine. And so even though now my deep back bends are not deeper than they were several years ago, or very slightly deeper maybe, now the difference is that when I come out of my back bends, I never feel compressed. I never feel like, ooh, that was intense. I come out and I'm like, oh, I could start walking, running, or do almost anything. That usually is because I really take the time to warm up my core enough. I warm up my muscles to go into my back bend to be ready to receive it. Those little pains can sometimes come. Maybe there's a bit of a herniation. It's not impossible. Herniation are not always heavily symptomatic. Maybe also there could have been a lot of tension building up into the muscles like the piriformis in the hip. That is a muscle that directly goes above the sciatic nerve. So if it's tensed, it can actually slightly choke the nerve. Also, you just have to keep in mind that whenever you're stretching a part that does not necessarily stretch very often, and if one of your leg is less flexible than the other, I suspect maybe it's the left.
Yeah, well, one's a little higher.
One's a little higher.
I see it in
When-
like the pockets. I can see.
Oh.
And I notice when I stand, like I'm just always like, my sister has it too, and she's had her hip, her socket was
Yeah.
loose, so
Mhm.
she's had it replaced.
It's
She's
been
doing it all
slowly, yeah. So, but there's a possibility that little bit of pain there, it's not just from the sciatic nerve, it can be from other things. If also there has been early on wearing down of the joint in the femur, it gives a pain sometimes to the front, but the pain is not always 100% like it is in the books. It can be, for you, you may feel it a little bit more in the back. It can vary a lot from person to person. Yeah, a dull pain is often an indicator of a very small level of irritation. So maybe what happened is that as you move forward, you may have stretch a little bit something that was already slightly, that had been inflamed, and then you force it to move. And then a dull pain though, if it's something, and it stays probably for just like one day, and then the next day you
Like at
don't
night
feel it.
before I fall asleep, and then it's morning. And it's after like I've done the yoga.
I wouldn't read too much into it. I wouldn't read too much into it. I would probably though just really pay even more attention as to, because is it every time you do a yoga practice, or it's only certain times?
It's usually, yeah, it's usually like after these weekends, I can feel it like at night before I fall asleep. Yeah, it's pretty much after yoga. I mean, unless it's restorative.
Okay, but any time of yoga practice?
Maybe not every single time, but I notice like in the summer, for example, like when I do a lot more yoga, I'm off in the summer, and I like.
But that's good, because I mean, that's just your body saying that work has been done.
Okay.
If the pain does not carry over to the next day, it means that it's just irritation on the normal. No. It just means that there's something rearranging in your body. It's a little bit like soreness from working very hard in something. That can carry over for 1 or 2 days. But if it goes away very quickly, no need to read too much into this. But though, if it becomes very intense, then definitely it's something that should be looked at. So basically, very easy ways to help the back. Always make sure that you try to preserve a neutral spine. Posture is one of the biggest key components of healing your spine. Reminding yourself to hold yourself straight. So you know what your mother was telling you again and again and again. She was not entirely wrong. She was actually mainly right. What she meant is that if one day you hurt yourself and you keep holding yourself like you're a bag of potatoes, you will feel like a bag of potatoes for the rest of your life. Make sure you hold yourself straight, create good habits, and then you will make it much easier on yourself if you get injured, if there's something going on. Don't wait until you're injured to then correct your posture. Correct it right away, so that when you are injured, not only you put your every chances on your side of healing faster, but also being able to still move. Because there's nothing less fun than being injured and also being extremely limited by your injury. If you can find ways to still be functional, even though you have an injury, life is sustainable. At least we don't want to jump out of the 12th floor when that happens, which is good. And of course, gentle core activation. The core is not just your abdominal wall. Let's avoid sit-ups. I hate them. I've always hated them. There's much better ways to have a six-pack. Planks are probably my go-to exercise. Baby planks. So you start where you can, right? So if being here is too much, guess what? It can get even easier than that. You can just decide to be here and just do that instead. That's also a core exercise. The core just means to activate the center so that it holds itself. You can do the same thing on your side. Like this. Just lifting your hip off the ground. An inch. Sorry? Yeah. Though when you do it seated like this, it means that you have to carry the weight of your legs. So, sorry?
Is it good? Is it not good for the back?
Well, it just means that if you already have an injury, holding the weight of the legs may already be too much.
Okay.
When you hold just the weight of the center of the body, so basically it's when the body holding itself, because if I hold my arm like this, yes, I'm making my shoulder work, though there's no actual full stabilization. But if I go to the ground, and then I do a similar exercise where, okay, my shoulder works, and then I press, then here I have two elements where the joint is actually, there's pressure, so the joints are being brought closer together, then they're made stronger. If you were to do this, you would have to remind yourself to pull the shoulder back into its socket. It's holding your legs, right? It means that not only do I have to hold my legs, but I also have to remind myself to keep my back neutral. When I'm here, you start with a neutral back. So there's less chance of not being able to preserve the alignment. Because that's what's difficult when you work with your core, is to keep the alignment intact. Does that answer the question? Yeah?
Sorry.
Yes, go ahead.
You're doing a plank,
Yes.
and you feel pretty good at it, and then after a little while, you start to feel your lower back being compressed. Is it better to just stop and go lower and start with something easier?
Yes.
Or do you do something to try to get back? You know, I just find it hard to pick up once the pain starts, or it's uncomfortable. I find it hard to just let go and relax.
Well, if there's, then again, a core exercise by nature it's challenging. Almost all core exercises will challenge your capacity to hold them.
Yeah.
Because as soon as you activate your core, it becomes harder to breathe. If you don't breathe well, your energy level just goes down very, very quickly. So start with an easier exercise that you can really control and master very well and breathe very comfortably before you go into something much deeper. You can go into something much more challenging, like a core exercise where there's also like a balancing involved. Those are intense. Those are very intense. But the more intense the exercise is, usually the shorter you will make it. So if you want to hold a full plank, maybe 5 breaths. Especially if it's challenging. When you teach, you're going to be like, okay, let's try to stay for 5 breaths. If this kills your wrists, come down on your elbows. If this is still too intense, come down on your knees. Make it accessible. And that's really all there is to be done in your yoga class, to make sure that whatever you're teaching, if you see that it's really unattainable or inaccessible for some students, find ways to make it accessible for them. And keep in mind also that it's not just the front, the sides also, so side planks, really, really, really good. Setu Bandhasana, little bridges, also really good. There was an exercise that I showed you. Setu Bandhasana, basically where you're not trying to lift as high as you can. The idea here is to keep both hips leveled, and so you remove one foot. This will make everything work. Back, sides, and front. Everything will have to work so that your body basically doesn't do that. So those are really good little exercises, and they can be done like you can be an inch from the ground. Same thing. Same struggle, just a little bit easier. So those are great exercises. Basically, when you remove one limb from the ground, it means that the rest has to stabilize. So everything around will work to make it. Oui. So, bridge pose. Though we're not trying to go into the deepest one, we're just going to mainly, again, neutral shape in the spine, and then we're trying to removing one foot and just lengthen it away, while both hips stay at the same height. This is what will happen. You need to remind them to keep the hips equal height, as much as they can. Those are really good exercises, and they're challenging. They may look easy, but they're very challenging, very quickly. This is really not something that most people will be able to keep for more than 10 seconds. Most.
Is there another core one that if I still am worried about, I mean, I know I go down and I improvise for plank. Is there something else that's good?
Well, I showed the ones where you would actually not even use your arms, where you're directly on your belly. Where you just imagine you're sucking the belly button off the ground.
I find is good. Is that good for the core?
Yeah. Sorry, I don't think I understood the word before.
Locust?
Locust? Locust is good, but it's mainly for your back muscles.
Really?
Yeah. Well, it depends on how you do it. There's a version of locust that I do that you barely lift at all. But the thing is that you need, to do that variation, you need, again, an even better awareness. So basically from, like if you do locust, you kind of want to lift here, somewhat. Careful not to squeeze your heels. Toes move in, heels turn out. Belly is slightly lifting off, but not much. And you're really just trying to lift. This is really your back that will work the most. The back, though, helps for the core.
Yeah.
If you do want to work on your core, though, I'd suggest to start very low. Imagine you're sucking the belly button off the ground. So you can see here I'm pulling my kidneys back. And then I'm trying to keep that while lifting my legs. Much harder. Much harder. And this is a really good deep core exercise that will make front and back work together again. So there are ways to make it work. And especially if shoulders are a challenge, come closer even to the ground. Great ways to make it work really well. Sorry. Another little exercise. So you know, like, you've probably done that one before. This is actually quite advanced. It's quite hard for a lot of people because they will feel compression in the lower back. So how do you bypass that? Work with one leg and go in static. It still works. It still works. Your core is still engaged. So basically what you do, you use the leg here to stabilize and protect your lower back, and you just work one leg at a time. So you can do static holds, where you just hold the leg, but the one leg here helps you protect your back, and then you do your other side. Working your core is challenging, but there are ways to really go around and still make it very efficient, though without furthering any injuries that you may have. Good. So basically, with lower back pain often, and this is really something that is common in yoga. Probably the most common thing that you will see in yoga is a development of sacroiliac instabilities. Sacroiliac joint is the joint that binds the sacrum and the iliac bone. Iliac is the hip bone. We did talk about that a couple of times already. We're going to do a quick overview. So basically, there's a couple of ligaments that hold it tightly together, and through asymmetrical forward bends like triangle, like Janu Shirshasana, we sometimes will create a very big torsion within the pelvis and create then, therefore, an overstretching of one side. It's usually the side opposite to your most flexible leg. What I mean by that is that if my most flexible leg to go forward is my right leg, it means that as I'm going forward, my left hip, which is externally rotated, which means that it presses backwards. So it means that my left hip wants to go that way while I'm going that way. So I'm creating a big torque there. So a good way to avoid having too much of a torque is by really drawing that right femur back in and bringing a little bit more of a neutral alignment within your hip. Another way to do this is to simply not think, okay, I'm going towards my leg. You're just saying, I'm going towards the place where my hips are looking. This is a good way to adjust. So if there's someone that in your class that tells you, I always have that weird, like, little pinching sensation there, I always feel like it should crack. If someone says it always feels like it should crack, it's usually because it doesn't need to crack. It's because there's something that's just a little bit irritated that gives you that uneasy sensation, and that uneasy sensation will only usually go away when they're like, oh, after yoga I feel so good. Yes, you warmed yourself up, you stop feeling the pain because you're warm enough to not feel it. Though the pain starts again usually about an hour, 2 hours after the practice. That is very indicative usually of a sacroiliac instability, or where the ligaments may have been slightly torn. Again, ligaments can heal. The only thing is that you don't want to keep pushing in them once they're injured. So all of those asymmetrical forward bends should be done much more carefully, much less intensely. So if I'm deciding to go forward, I might just stay here. I'll also try to keep my back a lot straighter, so that if I'm going all the way in, again, I will for sure start to pull into it. If I'm just staying a little bit higher and concentrate on tilting my hips as a unit, so my hips all together will tilt forward to create the tension into my leg. Then that's much more sustainable, much more sustainable. And it will help, you'll keep being able to practice without continually irritating that little injury that you've sustained, or that your students may have sustained.
If you don't have that instability, you can create an instability by
can
becoming always.
exactly.
So it's always good to do that little cue you just gave about bringing that femur in and keeping the neutral.
Yeah, those are ways that you will prevent it from happening.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely. Or if Because, I mean, the instability itself is also sometimes simply by one side opening faster than the other side. Or simply because you maybe practiced a little bit too much within a short period of time. And because going into very deep forward bends, even though, because I mean, Janu Shasana, when you start, it's meant to be like this, with your knee kind of pointing out straight to the side, almost a little smaller than a 90-degree angle. But if you look at the Ashtanga tradition, they eventually tell you to send the leg all the way back. And so there's this gigantic torsion within your spine, a big rotation that needs to be done. The thing is that if you practice this every single day, yes, for sure you will have a ligament instability at some point. But if this is something that you reserve maybe for once a week, or maximum twice a week, then usually it's something that can be sustainable. Very in-depth practice will require even better preparation. If you look at contortionists, they sometimes warm up for 2 hours before they will do something very, very intense.
So you mean if we are over flexible, there's a risk is higher?
If we're overly flexible, not necessarily for that. It means that your joints are naturally able to go much further. This specific instability will be common in people starting yoga because they fall in love with yoga and then they do it all the time, and because they don't yet have necessarily enough awareness as to how to position their legs. So cues again to maybe help is to remember, okay, hug the femur in so that your hips are a little bit more level. Try to really feel and keep a really nice long spine, and try to avoid shoving yourself on your foot right away. Because basically it means that before you feel it in your legs and your hips, you're already trying to go all the way to your foot. So more flexible people are not necessarily more subjected to that kind of injury, though it can happen to flexible or unflexible people. I've seen it happen to all kinds of people. Yeah. This is not necessarily the kind of injury that you will see in one specific population within yoga classes. It will be anyone who overdoes asymmetrical forward bend is at risk of maybe creating an instability in their SI joints. And usually it's one. It's only one side. And that side that will happen is usually on the opposite side of their most flexible leg. So if the right leg...
Do the same on the other side?
Well, they should do the same on the other side. The thing is that if they go very, very, very deep on one side because they're flexible, they will not be able to go as deep on the other side because they're less flexible. So you want them, again, to work on their symmetry. Lay off that overly flexible side. So stop irritating what's already irritated. Work on the side that's a little bit more stiff and that for now does not have any instability. Good. Let's keep going up. So, wrists and shoulders. Wrists, very, very